the beginning of the book of Devarim, Moshe rebukes the Jewish people about different things that they've done over the years. And one thing he says to them is he says, you made mistakes in Chatzeros and Dizahav. These are two locations. Talmud says we look all over the Torah, and these locations are really hints to actions that they did. Chatzeros refers to when the Jewish people sinned with Korach, questioning Moshe's authority. And Dizahav is when they sinned. Dizahav means too much gold. And they sinned by making the golden calf. Their tremendous wealth and their abundance of gold brought them to this error. Okay. Now, the question that we have is asked by the Maharal, it's asked by the Kli Yakar. The story of Korach actually happened after the golden calf. So why does Moshe mention the golden calf only after the story of Korach? They're out of order. It shouldn't be that way. Historically, it's simply not chronological. So what's the lesson? So there's a sefer called Apirion, written by Rabbi Shlomo Gansfried, and he has something really brilliant. And he says as follows: when Moshe was absent, he was gone. He went up to heaven. They were expecting him back, and he didn't come back on time. So that led them to ultimately build a golden calf. And the question is why? What's so terrible about appointing another person? There were some brilliant people. Yehoshua was his closest, Joshua was his closest student. Indeed, God had Yehoshua eventually take over from Moshe Rabbeinu when they went into the land of Israel. So there were very capable people around. Why is it, well, if Moshe's not back, we'd better go build a golden calf? That seems like an outrageous jump in logic. Why did they think that? So he explains that if you look at the verse, and the Alshich points us out in the verse, that it's a funny word. It says, Zeh Moshe Ha'ish. The Jewish people said to one another, this Moshe, the man, we don't know where he is. What do you mean Moshe, the human? Well, yeah, what did you think he was? Did you think he was a turtle? Did you think he was something else? Zeh Moshe Ha'ish. This Moshe was a man, and Apirion explains that they felt that Moshe was the one man ever. He was the only person in the human race to ever reach such a spiritual level, but that everyone else was lower than him. Moshe was like an angel. Everyone else was human. And there's not going to be another human. We're going to need to have something divine to replace Moshe. You see, they saw him as so far superior to everyone else as to be irreplaceable and gone. And the only solution would be something angelic and divine. And they hoped that when they would build the golden calf, God would put his divine presence on that thing and it would give them leadership. But they were superstitious about that. There was never going to be anyone like Moses because he was so much greater. He was a tzaddik beyond anything. He was righteous. You and I, sometimes we might crave food. He doesn't need any of that. He doesn't have any of these challenges. He could never lose his temper. He's totally perfect. Now, if that was the Jewish people's approach, on some level, it's almost forgivable. I mean, it's wrong and it's false, but they were so enamored of this great man, they couldn't conceive of there being a replacement. However, soon afterwards, a guy called Korach gets up and says, who the heck is this Moses guy anyway? Who's Moshe anyway? And a lot of people said, yeah, you're right. Now, wait a minute. I mean, if you were just so impressed with him that you built the golden calf, God might have been able to let that go on some level, says the Apirion. But the moment that you see how they treated Moshe, the moment that was convenient for them to disagree with him, they realized, you know what, this isn't really coming from deeply, sincerely held, emotional and religious values. This is just troublemakers. And so therefore the Torah says that Moshe rebuked the Jewish people by saying first what they did with Korach and only afterwards mentioning what they did with the golden calf. For the golden calf was made much more egregious by the fact that they demonstrated soon afterwards that they didn't really have such amazing awe and respect for Moshe. I think there's a deep lesson to learn from this. Very, very great people are people. Kol hagadol mechavero yitzro gadol himenu. The greater a person is, says the Talmud in Sukkah 52, the more his yetzer hara is great. The more his desire to do the wrong thing is great. What makes a great person great is that he controls himself with tremendous discipline and courage. It's not easy for the good firefighter to run in the building. It's hard. And the harder it was, the greater hero he was. For a righteous person to be righteous, for a rebbe or a tzaddik to be righteous, it's because they worked really hard. Now, for you and I, if we're sitting and studying Torah and someone comes and distracts us, we suddenly stop studying. For a great person, that's not going to distract him at all. He's focused. He's going to continue studying. So if there's going to be a challenge for him, that must mean it's enormous. It must be so hard for him when things come his way, and nevertheless he manages to control himself. Similarly, the Talmud talks about some people, says Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and possibly King David, who completely got rid of their Yetzer Hara. Lo shalat bohem yet. They completely got rid of all the challenges. They transcended that. And Tosfos points out that it can't mean completely, because then they would get no credit or reward for what they did. If that great rabbi or tzaddik was never tempted by anything wrong, then it's not impressive that he was so loving and faithful to his spouse, and that he was so patient, and that he never slept and he never ate. I mean, nobody never sleeps in the Yitzhak, but that he rarely slept and rarely ate is not impressive to us anymore if he had no desire to sleep and no desire to eat. It's only because of the level of challenge and desire. That error, looking to Moshe and thinking, oh, he is so much more superior, he is so much greater, he is so far ahead of me, that is actually a negative feeling. You need to realize that as great as that person is, he's still a human, and other humans are obligated to live up to those standards, and we can all become great, not despite the fact that we're human, but through this experience of being human. And that's what Moshe really stood for. So our sages tell us when Moshe went up to the mountain to receive the Torah, God said, how are you going to bring down the Torah to them? And he arranged a little meeting like this. The angels came to God and said, why would you give the Torah to humans? So Hashem said, Moshe, answer them. And Moshe said, well, the Torah says, honor your father and mother. Do you have a father and mother? Or do you ever get jealous? So then why would you murder somebody? Do you ever get angry? Kina yesh beinechem. Do you ever have any of these challenges that we have? It is precisely because we are faced with challenges. It's hard to do what's good. It takes a lot of hard work. That's what makes the Torah meaningful to us. It's what makes you great if you do the right thing. Therefore, we learn that treating Moshe or a tzaddik or a rebbe or reading a biography which makes you think that this person was perfect and never had challenges can actually be very destructive. It can actually lead a person down to the point of becoming less connected to God and more free to do whatever they like. Because after all, I'm not one of these great people. Us remembering that Moshe was human, a very, very great human, a human who was almost half divine. Isha Elokim, he was almost divine in many ways, and yet he was human. He's the one who taught the angels that and taught us that the Torah belongs down here for you and for me. Ultimately, considering that person to be so great as to be beyond human belittles him and makes him low, and makes him less than he was when he was human, and brings to a Korach situation where a person doesn't take Moshe as seriously as they ought to.